Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. And it's titled The Odyssey, a journey of nostalgia. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is this summer's blockbuster movie. Have you seen it? It's an ancient tale that has been told many, many times in many, many forms. It is a story, though, told in poetic form, and certainly not easy to recreate in any media, least of all the cinema. Even the written form that we have translated today is probably very not like the original as it was originally told. It was not written down at the time it was told and was written down several centuries later, and then of course translated. Much like so many of these ancient tales, including the books of the Bible, they were not written as historical accounts at the time. And of course the Odyssey is not history. It is myth. It doesn't even pretend to be history. Nolan's film has received rave reviews, but also criticism. Some have said that it is not historically accurate, although it is closer to the text than other adaptations, and certainly other so-called historical tales. Hollywood does not generally do history very well, and this is not history. I'm going to explore though some of the themes that I see in the Odyssey in this video, and I'll continue probably to explore some more in the next one that I'll do next week, including what is probably the next one will probably explore the real central theme of the whole of the Odyssey, or certainly to the Greek ideals at the time, something that's sometimes called Zeus's Law, or the concept of Xenia or Philoxenia, which is translated today as guest friendship or love of a stranger. I'll also probably explore some of the other spiritual themes as I see them that I'm not exploring in this devotion. So if you like this, watch next week's too. Next installment. But before we start, the really important thing, the Odyssey is not history, nor does it pretend to be. It is mythology. It is taking us on a journey to reveal universal truth, a long and arduous journey that for Odysseus took 10 years to finally get home. The journey from Troy, that is now probably considered to be somewhere in northern Turkey, to the island where he came from, Ithaca, which is west of the north part of Greece, off the coast there, should have actually only taken a few weeks, even in the ships they had in those days, to sail. This journey, like all journey, was not a straight line though, was it? And one littered with mistakes and hopefully many, many lessons. It was Odysseus's pride, though, when he defeated the Cyclops, that led him to being cursed by Poseidon, which led to most of his troubles, as I hear someone say, are troubles of our own making. Yeah, they come from self, from, in his case, pride. Odysseus had left Troy high on victory. He was returning a hero. He was full of pride. He was full of hubris, which the ancient Greeks were obsessed with the dangers of hubris, this idea that we become like gods, I guess, or have this pride beyond pride, I guess. He was a clever hero, Odysseus, and he was, and throughout the story we see this resurfacing even when he gets himself in a mess. But this, 10 years later, was not the man who finally reached Ithaca A man who had lost all of his men, had lost everything, and was dependent on others to even get home at the end. He lost everything except for one thing, his vision of home. Now, the Odyssey, actually, in this sense, reminds me of somewhat of Moses and the Israelites journeying toward the promised land. A journey that took 40 years. Now, 40 years then meant a lifetime, essentially, a really long time. A journey that should have taken a few months, maybe 6 months at the most. But they were wandering around in the desert, getting themselves in a mess. Now, of course, this wasn't a journey back home, but it was a journey to a new home. Odysseus, of course, just wanted to get home, much like the character played, if you think about it, in the film by Falling Down, the character played by Michael Douglas, who kept saying he just was just trying to get home. Or Steve Martin in Planes, Trains and Automobiles. I'm not going to quote some lines there, but if you've seen it, you know the classics. And it's a story you see, an idea, a concept that you see in so many great tales, both ancient and modern. The Odyssey is perhaps the archetype for most of these stories, actually. Maybe this was where they began the journey. Maybe the Odyssey is the original hero's journey depicted by Joseph Campbell. Now, the Odyssey is a tale told in poetic form. When you watch that on the cinema, that might not be realised, but that's how it was written. And, well, not written originally, it was just spoken. Eventually, centuries later, they wrote it down. Amazing how people used their brains in different ways in those days. Now, here's the first of several poems, actually, that I'm going to share in this devotion, depicting the journey home. This poem offers, it takes the angle it's taken is to offer one meaning that is found at the heart of the journey. One that's not really about the final goal, that the ends of the journey to Ithaca that draws us out on the journey. Instead, it's about the means by which we journey. It's an allegory for all our lives. It's an allegory, if you like, a mythos for the beautiful journey that is life itself. At the end of the book Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about trudging the road of happy destiny. So they talk about the journey of recovery there, which I can see parallels here, but they're not saying the road to happy destiny or the road to Ithaca, the road of happy destiny. So the journey itself, the beautiful journey, that is the goal, that is the gift, that is the destination itself. We're not actually trying to get somewhere, but maybe trying to get somewhere is what draws us out. And this is the parallel with the Odyssey in this wonderful, beautiful poem, again translated into English. This beautiful poem, Ithaca, by C.P. Cavafy. Here we go. As you set out for Ithaca, hope your road is a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery. Lystrigonians, Cyclops, angry Poseidon. Don't be afraid of them. You'll never find things like that on your way. As long as you keep your thoughts raised high, as long as a rare excitement stirs your spirit and your body. Lystrigonians, Cyclops, wild Poseidon. You won't encounter them unless you bring them along inside your soul, unless your soul sets them up in front of you. Hope your road is a long one. May there be many summer mornings when, with what pleasure, what joy, you enter harbours you're seeing for the first time. May you stop at Phoenician trading stations to buy fine things, mother of pearl and coral, amber and ebony, sensual perfume of every kind, as many sensual perfumes as you can. And may you visit many Egyptian cities and learn and go on learning from their scholars. Keep Ithaca always in your mind. Arriving there is what you're destined for. But don't hurry the journey at all. Better it last for years, so you're old by the time you reach the island, wealthy with all you've gained on the way, not expecting Ithaca to make you rich. Ithaca gave you the marvellous journey. Without her, you wouldn't have set out. She has nothing left to give you now. And if you find her poor, Ithaca won't have fooled you. Wise as you will have become, so full of experience, you'll have understood by then what these Ithacas mean. And we all have our own Ithacas that draws us out. The Odyssey is an archetype for the human journey, the call to adventure. Other examples might be Pilgrim's Progress or Gulliver's Travels or The Wizard of Oz, Jack and the Beanstalk, one of the most ancient of tales actually, thousands of years old, The Lord of the Rings. The list goes on and on. Humanity's canon is littered with folk tales and of myths which teach us about this call to adventure, about the potential for both beauty and horror. That's life. This is life. Choose life, Moses said, before they entered the promised land, and he didn't get to go. I lay before you life, blessings and curses. Therefore, choose life. And then they entered the promised land and began the real adventure. An adventure he didn't get to go on because he died. Joseph Campbell spent years exploring these myths and stories, believing that they possessed universal qualities that could help us understand how so often life calls us out to adventure. Often in the least expected moments, we don't know what's coming. I never do. The great adventures are not planned. We just take them. Now, Campbell identified 4 distinct stages of the journey. The first stage he named the call to adventure. This, he claimed, is caused by discontent, which draws us out of the comfort of our lives to risk something new. Now, for Odysseus, it was the call for home after 10 years at war with Troy. From the vain glory of being this conquering hero, he's called out of this wonderful state he's in to be called back home. That's his adventure, actually. He'd been called there in the first place, but that's another adventure. The second stage Campbell described as an initiation, where ordeals are faced that test our mental and physical skills, our other skills. You see Odysseus' great skill and great wit as he twists and turns, which is there at the beginning of the story. He uses this to overcome his troubles. And then, of course, you see his arrogance and his hubris, which creates his troubles. Most of his troubles are created from that, or other people, maybe sometimes his crew. The third stage that Campbell identifies is this time of revelation, the discovery of truth and the discovery of treasure. Now, the truth for Odysseus is that he is humbled by his return home. He is stripped of all his vainglory and is left to rely on the hospitality of others. He returns as an old beggar man, just stripped of everything. And there's the truth revealed. All that other stuff is meaningless. This is where he needs the state. This treasure is the state he needs to be in. And then the final stage is the return to one's community, but the return with wisdom gained and that treasure to share. And of course, this is Odysseus's return home, back with family, but a different man, a changed man, not a vain, prideful man, and with stories to share. And in so doing, he fulfills his nostos, which was key to one of the key principles of the Odyssey and these kind of Greek ideals. Are we any different? It might not look as exciting, but maybe not. On our journeys through life, though, there will be many obstacles that we meet along the way. No one's life is a perfect, smooth ride. And I don't for 1 minute believe it's meant to be that way. It's what Moses was saying. Choose life, blessings and curses. Life throws many obstacles at us, and we can easily be blown off course at times. Now, the key is not to allow these troubles to rule our lives and to maintain the faith in life itself that we will be able to find the courage to come through the troubles, to come through the storms, to come through the tests. But there's another key too, which we see in the poem Ithaca. Don't carry your own monsters with you. Just deal with what is there in front of you. I think one of the lessons of the Odyssey is that most of the troubles were self-created. Yes, some were created by the gods, but not all of them. In fact, they were, and even those were in response to the mistakes that Odysseus made. In fact, Odysseus was generally favoured by the gods. They were on his side. It's only really Poseidon who turned against him. And why did he turn against him? Well, he turned against him in grief and rage for blinding his son, the Cyclops, Polyphemus. And then foolishly, Odysseus reveals his name. He tells him that he did it when actually he tricked him earlier by saying nobody. And so when the other Cyclops come to help, nobody is who's attacking you? Nobody is attacking me. His wit saved him there, but then his vainglory and arrogance led to all of his troubles later. Troubles of our own making, eh? But anyway, despite all these real troubles, and again, this is what they're trying to teach, what we have is this beautiful journey of life. Just to repeat what comes at the end of that poem Ithaca that by Cavafire shared earlier. Ithaca has given you the beautiful journey. Without her, you would have never set out on the road. She has nothing more to give you. And if you find her poor, Ithaca has not deceived you. Wise as you have become with so much experience, you must already have understood what Ithaca means. Sorry, the opening line was Ithaca has given you the beautiful voyage. That's me remembering it incorrectly, calling it the beautiful journey, which we often do. The opening line there was the beautiful voyage. They were people of the sea. Remember, the Odyssey is all about the voyage. It's not just the journey, it's a particular voyage. We are people of the sea. No one knows what the future holds. It truly is unwritten, but we need not fear it for that. We do not have the seers like Odysseus met on his journey, such as the blind prophet of Thebes, who Odysseus meets in Hades, the underworld. Tiresias tells Odysseus how to return home. He warns about the dangers, and he predicts his peaceful death in old age. But we don't get that. If I had known what was coming in the last couple of weeks in front of me in my life, I may well have buried my head or just stayed in bed. But I have not. I have journeyed on with the help of beautiful friends. something else I might explore in the next devotion. Because we don't journey alone, do we? We walk shoulder to shoulder on a common journey, each of us. Here's another poem based on the hero of the Odyssey by Tom Leonard, titled Odysseus. Odysseus by Tom Leonard. It took me so long to get back to who I am. Why was I away so long? Why was the journey so tortuous? All those false masks against a backdrop narrative to do with authenticity. But now arriving back there is still much debris to clear, the clearer to see the point from which I started. That from which I set out confused in sundry identities at war with themselves, now to find calm on that setting out point as the final destination. That final destination. The call to return, especially to return home, is a powerful one. But this call is not just about returning to a geographical place. It's also about returning to a time. About returning to a time perhaps when everything was simpler, it felt safer, we were younger. The call to return home is what Dorothy here is in The Wizard of Oz is all about. It's what she hears. And this call is the call of nostalgia. The return to the place of safety, the place of paradise, although it's the place you wanted to escape from originally. That place where we are cared for and looked after. But it seems boring when we're young. It's not what we remembered. We didn't want to be there when we were young. Nostalgia is often blind and sometimes it's senseless. It can also be very painful. Things are never quite as we remember them. Never. Nostalgia is rooted in the Greek word nostos, which is the central call of the Odyssey, this arduous journey by sea, full of adventure, full of trials, full of tribulations. Nostos is not just the call of Odysseus, Penelope's yearning too, although she doesn't go off on an adventure. But for her, it's a return of her husband, a return back to how things were. For him, it's the call to return home, initially as the conquering hero. But he wants to return home back to how things were, which weren't perfect to begin with. But our minds don't remember things that way, do they? Important to remember that in our day and age. This call of nostalgia, very powerful. And nostalgia is one of the central themes of the Odyssey. But things are not quite what we thought they were. And nostalgia, and it's when the word nostalgia, which partly is from nostos, developed originally when the word came into the language. It's not what even the word nostalgia doesn't mean what it. If there's nostalgia about the word nostalgia, it doesn't mean what it once did. It's nostalgia in its original understanding meant severe homesickness, considered as a disease. Doesn't sound good, does it? Nostalgia. From the German Heimweh, home plus woe. Home sickness. Rooted in the ancient Greek words algos, meaning pain, grief, distress, and nostos, meaning homecoming, the journey to Ithaca. So nostalgia is a painful homecoming. The call to return home is powerful and at times it's painful. It can cause a deep yearning ache in our hearts and souls. This is the call of Odysseus, and it's there throughout his trials and tribulations. It's what spurs him on, I guess. But there's pain there. Nostalgia ain't what it used to be, is it? Things never are. So the return home, this nostos, is not without pain. And actually, if you think about some of the great stories about people returning, when they first return, they often suffer rejection. Even what seems like the end of the journey or near the end of the journey can actually be the middle of the journey in terms of trials and tribulations. Think of some of these stories. Think of Jack and his beans in the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, a really ancient tale. Think of Jesus actually in Mark's Gospel, returning home and being rejected and almost mocked in his hometown. As he said to his disciples, prophets are not without honour, except in their hometown and among their own kin and in their own house. Sometimes we might not be recognised when we return home. And how painful can that be? People don't see us as we are. We may have changed. That can cause discomfort or rejection. People don't like the people we become. Anybody on a spiritual journey of discovery and change will have experienced this discomfort. People in recovery often talk about this, people not accepting us. I remember I went through it myself, but I was just self-centered. I was expecting people to just accept me as I am. Don't we all feel like that? But we can all feel like a stranger in our own land. Think about Odysseus. He is not recognized on his return. He looks like a beggar. He is stripped of all his vainglory. In fact, it's his old dying dog, Argos, who recognizes him, dropping his ears and wagging his tail. Odysseus weeps, but he cannot go to his dog or his identity will be revealed. Argos has been neglected and left on the dirt heap. Real symbolism there, isn't there? It symbolises the pain and the neglect of the whole of Ithaca since Odysseus left. There's been a mourning, a grief, a pain there. This is a heartbreaking moment in the narrative. Argos, his old loyal dog, dies as Odysseus arrives home. He dies safe in the knowledge of Odysseus's return. I think this might be the most beautifully pure moment in the whole of the mythos. In fact, maybe Argos is the real hero of the Odyssey. Maybe it's not the humans. Maybe it's the old loyal dog. Maybe. I might just be being sentimental there. I don't think I am, though. Here's another poem inspired by the Odyssey. Now, in this poem, the author refers to Ulysses. And now Ulysses is actually just the Roman name for Odysseus, the Latin name for Odysseus. So this is The Art of Poetry by Georges-Louis Bourget. To look at the river made of time and water, and remember that time is another river, to know that we lose ourselves like the river, and that faces go by like the water. To feel that wakefulness is another sleep, that dreams it is not dreaming, and that the death that our flesh fears is that death every night that is called sleep. To see in the day or the year a symbol of the days of mankind and of his years, to change the outrage of the years into a music, a rumour, and a symbol, to see in death sleep, in sunset a sad gold, such is the poetry that is immortal and pure. Poetry returns like dawn and sunset. Sometimes in the evening, a face looks at us from the bottom of a mirror. Art should be like that mirror that reveals our own face to us. They tell that Ulysses, tired of wonders, wept with love at the sight of his Ithaca, green and humble. Art is that Ithaca of green eternity, not of wonders. It is also like the endless river that passes and remains and is the mirror of one same inconstant Heraclitus, who is the same and is another, like the endless river. Here Bourget, like Joseph Campbell, recognises a common theme in all the great stories. In this poem, he explores some of the great ancient stories, one being Ulysses, which is the Latin translation of Odysseus, and his painful return to Ithaca. He also talks, though, of the philosopher Heraclitus, who suggested that we can never return to the same river. Everything is flux, everything changes. That's his philosophy, really. Life is impermanent. You can't go back to something as it was. That's because the water continues to flow on, and the water then that we step into is not the same as the water we left. But also because we who stand in the river are not the same either. Life will have changed us too, as it does for Odysseus. Like the river, our lives go on, ever changing. The lesson is that it's not about yearning to return to some mythical ideal, but to fully experience the adventure, the beautiful journey. Life that continues to flow on, but not the same. How can it be the same? Nothing is ever the same. This is the danger. This is the grief of nostalgia. It's the beautiful journey we're given that we're drawn on, like Cavafy suggests in his poem Ithaca. This is the lesson, or certainly a central lesson, of Homer's Odyssey. And it's also the lesson of the great stories. For the treasure is the call, the treasure is the journey itself that we're on, but yet we're focused on a destination. We want to be somewhere when life is the destination. The means is the end in itself. It's how we journey and who we journey with, I guess. Life is a journey, and a beautiful one at that, one in which we are constantly turning and returning again and again and again. We are reborn again and again and again. Think about the religious word converter, which means to be reborn, which converter or conversion, which conversion comes from converter, meant to turn or to return. Constantly this is happening. Not always easy. One filled with troubles and difficulties, because that is life. And in life, in our journeys, like Odysseus, there will be times when we won't be recognised. There may be times when we don't even recognise ourselves. There will be times when we feel completely lost and won't know where to turn for sanctuary. We will have to depend almost completely on others to help us get back on our feet. And we must do the same, encourage others to. But the key is to journey on, to keep turning, if you like, to journey on. And in the end, we return. But we're not the same. And neither is the place that we return to, whether it's geographical or just in our memory. Because the river's changed, and so has the person stepping into it. Odysseus returned home a changed man, humbled by the journey, stripped down, all his pride and vainglory gone, stripped down to nothing almost, and an old man. Be 40 years old, I guess. So in those days, 40 was a lifetime, a bit like the 40 years in the wilderness of Moses and the Israelites. 40, you've done well to live to 40. Both he and Penelope were eventually reunited, along with their now adult son Telemachus. Odysseus. This fulfilled Odysseus's nostos. That's what it was about, at the heart of it. But more about that and a few other themes next time. But the story goes on as our lives go on in endless song. How can I keep from singing? For the journey is never ending, even if we're not on it. Because we're not on it for long, are we? So I'm going to end this devotion, although there will be more on the Odyssey next time. I hope you look forward to that. But I'm going to end this devotion with a final poem and then a blessing. And I thought I'd pick another poem, which isn't necessarily, well, it could be, about the Odyssey, another Odyssey. This is by the wonderful Mary Oliver, a poem titled The Journey. The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. The Odyssey. It goes on. I'm going to end today's reflection with a few words of blessing. And we need to bless more. We can all bless, and we bless by giving ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So give yourself wholeheartedly to life by choosing life. So here's some words of blessing. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile on you and favour you. May the Eternal befriend and prosper you. And may we carry the song of the Eternal with us in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. My life goes on in endless song. How can I keep from singing? Amen.